Rain fell in thin, relentless sheets, tapping against the wooden porch like impatient fingers. The forest beyond the clearing breathed in slow, heavy sighs, dark and endless. Inside the small cabin, a former Navy SEAL sat alone, the quiet broken only by the crackle of a dying fire. Nights like this usually passed without interruption. But that night was different. A sound cut through the rain, faint and uneven, not quite a bark, not quite a cry. He stood, instincts older than thought already pulling him toward the door. When he opened it, cold air rushed inside, carrying the scent of wet earth. On the porch stood a German Shepherd puppy, soaked to the bone. Mud streaked its legs, one paw trembling as it tried to stay upright. Its ears were uneven, one standing, one folded, and its eyes were wide with urgency rather than fear. The puppy didn't whine for food or warmth. It turned abruptly, took a few steps toward the trees, then stopped and looked back, eyes locking onto his. Again it ran a few steps. Again it looked back. The man felt something tighten in his chest. He had seen that look before in places far from home, in people trapped where help came too late. That look didn't beg. It demanded. He pulled on his jacket, slid his boots on without tying them fully and grabbed a flashlight. "All right," he muttered, stepping into the rain. The puppy waited just long enough to be sure he followed, then limped into the forest. Branches clawed at his sleeves as they moved deeper between the trees. Rain softened their footsteps, but urgency sharpened the air. The puppy glanced back every few seconds as if afraid he might disappear. Soon the trees thinned, revealing cracked pavements swallowed by weeds. The abandoned park loomed ahead, its rusted swings swaying in the wind. A single streetlight flickered weakly, casting sickly yellow light onto wet ground. Then he heard it. Laughter. Young voices, careless and cruel, carried easily through the rain. The puppy let out a broken cry and bolted forward. The man followed, heart pounding, boots splashing through puddles. As he reached the edge of the light, his breath caught. Something dark was tied upright beneath the lamp. Fur glistened with rain. A full-grown German Shepherd strained weakly against thick rope, her body shaking, legs barely holding her weight. Blood streaked her coat. The puppy cried out again. Whatever waited here was worse than he'd imagined. The former Navy SEAL stepped fully into the light, rain dripping from his jacket, every detail burning itself into his memory. The mother dog was larger than most German Shepherds, her powerful frame reduced by pain and exhaustion. Rope bit into her chest and neck, cutting through fur and skin. One eye was swollen shut, the other wide and frantic, tracking every movement. Her legs trembled uncontrollably, claws scraping against slick pavement as she fought to stay upright. She wasn't giving up. She was enduring. Two boys stood nearby beneath the flickering streetlight. They looked no older than 17 or 18, clean, confident, untouched by consequence. One held a phone out, filming, his mouth curled into a lazy grin. The other leaned casually against the pole, hands in his pockets, laughing softly as if this were harmless fun. The puppy tried to reach its mother, but the rope held her just out of reach. "Hey," the one with the phone said, irritation replacing surprise. "This is private property." The man didn't answer. His eyes moved over the knots, the rope, the blood. Memories stirred, unwanted and sharp, of other places where people were tied and left standing for someone else's amusement. "Step away from the dog," he said calmly. The second boy laughed. "Or what?" The boy with the phone hesitated, studying the man more closely. He noticed the height, the balance, the stillness that came from long training. "You don't know who you're messing with," he said. "My father." The distance vanished in a blink. The SEAL grabbed his wrist, twisted, and drove him face-first into the wet ground. The phone flew free, skidding across the pavement. The boy screamed, shock louder than pain. The other boy lunged, then froze as the man turned his head slowly toward him. There was no anger in his eyes, only certainty. "Back," he said quietly. The boy obeyed, stumbling away without thinking. The man knelt beside the mother dog, cutting the rope with the knife he always carried. She collapsed instantly, her weight heavier than it looked. He eased her onto her side, shielding her head from the pavement. She whimpered once, then lay still, chest heaving. "It's all right," he murmured. "I've got you." Behind him, the first boy scrambled upright, face red with rage and humiliation. "You're dead," he spat. "You hear me?" The SEAL stood and faced them under the streetlight. Rain streaked down his face. "If I ever see you near this dog again," he said evenly, "no one will come looking for you." The words landed hard. The boys didn't answer. They ran, slipping once before vanishing into the rain. Silence rushed in. The puppy pressed against his leg, shaking but unafraid to stay. Morning arrived thin and gray, the forest steaming softly after the storm. Inside the cabin, the German shepherd mother lay on a blanket near the hearth, her breathing shallow but steady. In daylight, her injuries were worse than he'd thought. Bruising darkened her ribs. Cuts lined her neck where the rope had burned into flesh. Still, her remaining eye followed him constantly, alert even in pain. The puppy slept curled against her belly, one leg bandaged, ears twitching at every sound. When the man stepped outside, his jaw tightened. The cabin door hung crooked on its hinges. Deep gouges scarred the wooden wall. One window lay shattered, glass glittering in the mud. Tire tracks cut through the clearing, wide and deliberate. He stood quietly, letting the message sink in. This wasn't over. By noon, a sheriff's cruiser rolled slowly up the gravel road. The deputy who stepped out barely glanced at the damage. "Got a call," he said flatly. "Two miners say you assaulted them." "I stopped them from killing a dog," the man replied. "That's not what they said." The questions came carefully, suspiciously. Why did he live alone? Why was he armed? Why hadn't he called authorities first? When the deputy left, he offered no help, only a warning to keep to yourself. Word spread fast. In town, conversations dropped when he entered. Someone muttered, "Dangerous." Another said, "Crazy." That evening, as he refilled the dog's water bowl, the puppy suddenly backed away, whining. The mother's head snapped up, a low growl rumbling in her chest. The man smelled it then, sharp and bitter. He poured the water into the dirt and spotted a piece of sausage nearby, dusted with pale grains. Poison. He burned it behind the cabin, face unreadable as smoke curled upward. That night he didn't sleep. He checked old trail cameras he'd once used for wildlife. One showed headlights idling near his driveway before dawn. Another caught a truck circling the abandoned park. He copied the footage, labeled times, noted details. Panic had no place here. By the end of the week, he had evidence neatly arranged. Instead of calling local law enforcement, he contacted a regional animal welfare office. The woman who answered listened carefully, asked precise questions, and promised to come herself. When he hung up, the forest was quiet again, but it felt different. The mother dog leaned against his leg, trusting. The puppy wagged once, cautious but hopeful. Whatever came next, he would face it the same way he always had. Prepared, steady, and unwilling to look away. Eleanor Briggs arrived 2 days later in a dusty state vehicle. She was in her late 50s, iron-gray hair pulled back, eyes sharp but kind. She examined the dogs with practiced care, her expression tightening as she reviewed the footage. "This isn't an isolated incident," she said quietly. "And it won't stay buried." Within days, the story spread beyond the town. A regional news station aired the footage. Old videos resurfaced online showing the same boys tormenting animals years earlier. Lawyers issued statements. Parents denied responsibility. But proof has weight, and this time it landed. Charges were filed. Not dramatic ones but permanent ones. The retaliation stopped. No more trucks. No more poison. The forest seemed to exhale. As weeks passed, the mother dog healed. Strength returned to her legs. Her coat thickened and shone again, scars hidden but remembered. She stayed close to the man, not clinging but choosing. The puppy grew fast, paws oversized, ears finally standing. It followed him everywhere, stopping often to check that he was still there. One morning, Eleanor returned without a clipboard. She watched the dogs move around the clearing. "They've chosen you," she said. He looked down at the mother dog. She met his gaze steadily. The puppy sat beside her, tail thumping once. He nodded. "Make it official." The paperwork took minutes. The change took everything. In town, whispers softened. Some nodded now. A woman thanked him quietly. He didn't linger. He never had. At dusk, he walked back toward the cabin, the dogs flanking him. The mother matched his pace. The puppy ran ahead, then doubled back, learning not to leave. That night, the wind tested the eaves. Inside, the cabin held new sounds, breathing, paws shifting, life. He rested a hand on the mother dog's shoulder as she checked the door, feeling steady strength beneath fur. Morning came with pale light stretching across the floor. 3 shadows crossed the clearing together. Sometimes help doesn't arrive with sirens or wings. Sometimes it comes as a frightened puppy knocking in the rain, a wounded mother holding on, and a broken soldier still willing to answer. None of them were meant to meet by accident. This is how quiet miracles work, placed carefully where they are needed most.